Welcome to the Rural Pastor Podcast with your host, Pastor Andy Addis.
You plant the seeds in the ground, though the fields have long been brown. But Lord, when will your harvest come in? You're giving all you've got to give in the place where you've been sent. But will this labor make much difference in the end? Will no one ever know? Sometimes you feel so all alone. Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, with a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you sow, but it just takes one willing soul to make him known.
Well, welcome to the Rural Pastor Podcast, where we want to pour into, partner with, and pat on the back that rural pastor, because what you're doing is so important, and you need to know you are not alone. We're starting this year with a series called The Spiritually Healthy Pastor, and we're using the Great Commandment, where Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength as the platform. And we've talked about the pastor's heart, and we've talked about the pastor's mind. Today, we talk about the pastor's soul. I'm Andy Addis. I have the privilege of pastoring a rural multi-site network called Crosspoint. I'm also the North American Mission Board's rural director. I'm joined with Dany Payne, the director of missions for Flint Hill Baptist Association. And Dany, what's the weather like in the middle of Kansas right now?
Well, right now it is sunny and about 35. It's pretty nice. I'll take it for this time of year. We're supposed to get a little snow later on, but
we love January, don't we? We love January.
We do.
I'm one of those guys. I love snow until December 26th, and then it needs to turn into Florida. I want to be a South Florida boy after that.
We might be brothers. I'm just saying.
Yeah, let me tell you. I like holiday weather. Okay, that's not what we're here to talk about. I've got a couple of things real quick. I hope that you're enjoying this series. I hope that you're enjoying the Rural Pastor Podcast. I had the privilege of writing a book that came out this last fall. It's the first novel that I've been able to write. It's kind of a modern allegory of the book of Jonah. It's called Jonas. And I want to give a couple copies of this away. So here's how we're going to do this. If you're enjoying the Rural Pastor Podcast, simply take the social media post, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is, and share it. And if for this episode, as we talk about the spiritually healthy pastor, we talk about their soul, if you'll share that, I'm just going to scour and we're going to pick at random 2 or 3 people from those platforms who've shared this post, and we'll get in touch with you, find an address. We're going to send you a copy of that book. Just as an incentive, we'd love for you to share. If this is doing you some good, please share it with others, and we'll try and incentivize you for a little bit of that. Sound good, Dany? We'll just give a few things away.
Yeah, I like that idea. I was going to tell you that I picked up a copy of it for my wife. One of the things she does with our daughter is she reads to her every night. She's about to finish a book and going to read that to her. Man,
I can't wait to hear what she says. I've gotten some incredibly good feedback on it. I've written several things for Bible study and for ministry based, but this is the first time I've ever gotten on that creative side of things. And I'll tell you what, it was a lot of fun. But that's another whole nother Oprah. We'll do that some other time. Okay, as we are talking about the spiritually healthy pastor, and today we focus. I don't know why I put an O on R in focus, but here, as we focus on the spiritually healthy pastor's soul, I want to ask you a question. I'll tell you what mine was, give you time to think, but when was your most recent best worship experience? And, sometimes it's in a church, sometimes it's not. There was 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. I just cannot even capture the moment well to present it. We went through tech run before service. We got everything, rehearsal, and we were getting ready to go and pray together. And we decided that we were running short on time that day, so we weren't going to go in to a back room and pray together. We just gathered on the edge of the stage, and one of our worship pastors said, "Hey, let's not even talk. Let's just take the chorus that we just sang, and let's just sing this together." And the chorus that we practiced and that we would do for worship that weekend, we just sang a cappella together as a handful of voices. And I'll tell you what, it nearly brought me to my knees. It was just one of those moments, and it was the chorus of an old hymn. And, to be honest with you, it probably didn't even sound that good, but it was phenomenal. It was that moment where he just said, stop, focus, think about why we're doing what we're doing. And it was beautiful. It was just one of those moments that you can't capture. And I bet everybody's thinking of one that they've had in their own life. How about you, Dany? A recent best worship experience for you?
A couple of weeks ago, I was filling in a church, and I had suggested to the staff that at the end of the service, and I told the congregation at the beginning that we really wanted to pray over you if you were dealing with some challenges in your life, and we didn't need to know the details. And the staff were like, well, we've never really done anything like that, but they were willing to give it a go. And so at the end of the service, I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you to just slip up your hand. And if you are in need of prayer, you don't need to say a word to us. And we are going to surround you and pray over you.
Oh, beautiful.
And it was so cool, Andy, to just see people take the courage just to slip up their hand. That was just such vulnerability. But then to watch people just with very little prompting from me to just to move to whoever was in proximity to pray over them, not knowing any of the things that they were navigating. And it was such a moment of worship, and was good for my soul to see people really care. And that was a really sweet time.
Yeah, and I think pastors long for those moments, but part of the problem is we long to see them. We want to orchestrate them so that people can experience that, but we need to be in those moments too, for our own soul, for our own health. And that's kind of what this section of the Spiritually Healthy Pastor is all about. I want to read for you 4 verses from Psalm 63. And I always say this is a familiar passage. It's because I know I'm talking to pastors. It would be very hard to find a passage that wasn't familiar to many of these guys. So here's what it says in Psalm 63, verse 1. "O God, you're my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I've looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory, because your steadfast love is better than life. My lips will praise you, so I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands." A few things that to help us focus on being a spiritually healthy pastor with regard to our own soul. Let's talk about that word soul. In the Hebrew, the word for soul is nephesh. And it's a word that it could be translated life, soul, creature, person. But here's what I love. It could also be the word for appetite. And your soul is that part of you that is actually you. Wasn't it C.S. Lewis who said, we don't have souls, we are souls that have a body. And we are that nephesh. And what does it say? My soul thirsts for you. I love that the psalmist says that. But I'm going to be real honest right now, and you respond as you want to, Dany. But most of the time, I can only wish that was the truth, that my soul was actually truly thirsting for Him, that the appetite of my center of who I am, when too often it's hungering for other things. It's not that God's absent, but He's definitely not centered and He's not preeminent, and that's when I know that things aren't right, because my soul, my nephesh, my appetite is not for Him more than anything else, like I'm dying of thirst in a dry and weary land. Is that a common experience, do you think, for many pastors?
It is, and I think probably for most of us, we want to treat our appetite, and we would like it to be a buffet. Get a little Jesus and a lot of other things. And we're not getting all the Jesus that He wants us to have, but our appetite is like, oh, I really like that Jesus. And I'd like to have you too, but I'd like to have this and this and this and this and this and this. And those appetites typically lead us, rarely do they lead us to Him. They lead us away from Him if they're not centered on Him.
Yeah, because if you try and include Him in other things, He'll have none of that, right? That's why there's a first and a second commandment. You should have no other gods before me, and you should have no idols or graven images. He says, I don't even want you to have a picture of me that you like better than other parts of me. It's all or nothing with me, right? And so the rest of this passage surrounding that verse, I think, gives us the way to be healthy in our own soul And you just labeled the first one, believe it or not. It says in verse 1, "Oh God, you are my God." Right? The thing is, there is one God. And when we sense that our soul is not satisfied in him and him alone, the leading cause is probably because we've been serving Jesus or Jesus with, or Jesus alongside something instead of God and God alone. And so when we do that, it's that stripping away where we realize that we have tried to use Jesus as a means to another end instead of Jesus being the means and the end in ministry. And that's where it needs to start.
Well, I last year, right at the end of last year, I was reading, and I don't remember who said it, but he said all the other 9 commandments that we get of the 10 are all hinging on the first one. And that all the others, if they get broken, it's because the first one is broken. We don't break the others independently of the first. The first one, once the first one's broken, then all the others typically fall. Like if you're coveting, it's because Jesus isn't enough. If you're doing something else, it's because Jesus isn't. Our shift, our appetite is towards those things, and if it's not towards Christ, I did a sermon series years ago at a church that the throne of Christ is a 1-seater, not a 2-seater. He doesn't need.
I love that. It's not a love seat, huh?
It is not. And I think we want it to be. We want, God, I think I kind of know what I'm doing here. And God's like, no, there's only one person on the throne, and it's me. And you don't get to, it's not a 2-seater. And so I think there's something important to that, Andy, that our appetite, oh my goodness, when I think about the word appetite, just where it can take you if it's not towards the things of God.
The soul is the appetite. There has to be just one thing. It's not a buffet. I like what you're saying. It's just the one God that we have before us. But then here's the next part. Oh God, you're my God. Earnestly I seek you. Now, we do seek God and we do pursue him, but that word earnestly is a word that means it's intentional, it's hard, it is dogged. I used to have a dog that I grew up with, a little border collie, and Princess was her name. And she was a sweet little passive dog, but if you started playing tug of war with her, if you had that little knot rope, and you got out there, the first couple tugs, she'd play with you a little bit, third or fourth, but then when you saw that lip snarl and was pulling back, had all 4, those little paws dug in, it became an all-out battle. Now that's when she was playing in earnest. And I think the pastor of the church, their number one job is not to love people, it is to love Jesus. Their number one job is not to perform well, it is to submit well. I forget who it was. We've quoted him before on this program, but the main job of the pastor is their main responsibility is their personal holiness. That if they are right with God, and that is that earnestly seeking. And for different, I'm not going to give you a list because we could get pharisaical real quick. Got to be up at 5:00 praying for 3 hours, and then you have to fast twice a week. And I don't know what the Lord is requiring of you, but you know what is disciplined and what is earnest in your pursuit of Him. And I think we have to be honest when we realize that we are kind of phoning it in and getting by, as opposed to being earnest. If we're really honest when we're in doldrum places and the ministry's not going well, and if we said, are you earnestly pursuing God? Are you passionately tugging at that rope? Are you being the persistent widow who's going to the judge every day? The truth is most of us aren't. A lot of us get into some habits where we're tired and we're distracted and we kind of phone it in and we're not being earnest. Again, I'm asking for a heat check, Dany. Is this true?
It is. And I think, going back to our podcast before on Romans, just that idea that Andy, verse 1, Paul said, I urge you, because he knows what our propensity is to drift towards other things. Like if you're not being transformed in the likeness of Christ, if your appetites like this one, if your appetites are driving you, and if you look at the things around you and all of a sudden you're you're pursuing those things, and our hearts can get so torn and drift towards the things that are not of God. And no guy means for that to happen. Nobody means for that to happen.
Nope.
But if your quiet time, like if you're in a hard spot at a church, is, how important it is that, God, am I honoring you, or am I trying to please men? Am I trying to dazzle with my vocabulary or the things that I know because of my education? I mean, he's wild. He's not wild by any of those things. He wants to know what's the posture of our hearts.
Yeah, and anything that we're doing that we can receive glory for, he can't, and that's not what he wants, right? So part of this, keeping our soul in the right place and keeping our soul healthy, is that it's got to be one God. We've got to be earnestly seeking him, not his provision for our ministry or his protection for this or that, but seeking him. And then as we continue on, my soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. It goes on to say, because of your steadfast love that's better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name, I will lift up my hands. Three or four different ways of saying that my soul, in right response, worships you. Now, there's a lot of memes that are out right now, and it's pretty funny that every time you pray on stage, that's just so people can move the musicians around and get the stage reset. But it's kind of sad when it's true. It's kind of sad that the pastor's worship is very often part of a production, and it's got to be this seamless presentation so that it comes off well. But what if the way that we actually participated in worship was to be in that moment? I have looked upon you in your sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. I will lift up my hands. I was convicted of this several years ago. I'm in a church that has 3 services a weekend. So I not only preach the same message 3 times, but I'm in the same worship service 3 times. And what I used to do was think, oh man, I got to do this 3 times. So I'm going to check out 2 of them, just be with my wife, 1 of them. But that didn't help the congregation that was there. And the truth is, if I'm bored twice, it doesn't have anything to do with the Lord. That has to do with me. And so I made a decision that I would worship as many times as our church was in worship, that I would be on the front row so that people could see their pastor who is there, and I would be investing with energy. And it's not a performance. I want to worship so that I'm prepared to preach, and I'm not just coming in as a parachute teacher that was a part of that service but wasn't really there. It has done monumental things, not only for me, but for my leadership in the church. People know that you're there and you're with them, and that this is a worship experience. In that process, I think pastors often shortcut because we're pastors and we have other things to do. And I think the primary thing that we need to do is be the worship pastor.
And I think, Andy, that is so true. When we are thinking about modeling, as parents, you think you want to model things that your kids catch. And this is that same thing. You want to model for your people what's important, and worship is happening. They assume it's happening for us, and that's not always true. And I think for us to position ourselves in a posture of wanting to worship, certainly in your case, you could check out for 2 services, but the people that go to that specific service,
that's right,
they need to see you.
That is right. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Go ahead. I cut you off, Dany. You go.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, part of that is that leadership. Part of that is that modeling. But the truth is that I am a better deliverer of the message when I'm connected to the service that I'm in. That if I'm sitting on the front row scrawling out new notes on the back of an offering envelope because I didn't get everything done in time, or if I'm in the hallway dealing with the new announcements that got to be worked in because they didn't get put on the card that was supposed to be given to me before that, all of those things are distracting you from what? Looking upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory, and lifting up my hands as I bless your name. Those things are essential to you as not only a pastor, but a believer. And if we're going to have a spiritually healthy pastor, your soul has to be fed. You have to drink when you are thirsty. Your flesh will faint. And we are in a dry and weary land. And worship, if I'm reading this correctly, worshiping God and being in his presence, that is the only way to satisfy that.
Think about this, Andy. When was the last time you were super thirsty? And like, what was it like to be so thirsty and you needed it quenched? Years ago, we were playing basketball with a bunch of guys. Dead of summer, we actually had worked at our vacation Bible school at our church, and we went over to this elementary school to play basically dunk ball because the goals were low enough for a boy like me that could throw it down on a 7-footer.
With a 5-inch vertical. Yeah, you got that.
Got that right. And so not a one of us brought anything to drink, and we pulled our money together, what little we had, and we had a young little boy who was playing with us. He's probably, probably 10. And there was a Dillon's around the corner from us. We said, hey, go get us a cold drink. And so we're playing, and he comes back with, now for 10 of us and 1 can of pop, that's not going to go real far. And that boy brought us back. He bought the cheapest can he could. He brought us a grape soda, and it was warm. And I thought I was thirsty until I took a swig of warm grape soda, and all of us were so parched. And it struck me that when you're really thirsty, what you drink really matters. Mm. It really matters because, when Jesus tells the woman at the well, you're going to get thirsty again. With me, you won't be thirsty anymore.
Amen.
And I think, are we drinking from the right well?
That is such a great analogy. The application that I have for the spiritually healthy pastor soul is that maybe we need to build into our life some praise breaks. You know what I mean? Just some moments. It's one thing. Corporate worship is really important, but personal worship is as well. And for most of us, personal worship sometimes gets masqueraded as sermon prep. But what if you got off that difficult phone call, instead of starting another phone call to tell somebody else how difficult that phone call was, what if you just turned up the old Sandy Patty for you youngsters? That was an old worship leader in music.
Man, that is old school.
Yeah, or let's bring it forward a little bit. Some Petra. Oh yeah. I'm just Striper. Yeah. Okay, we've now lost everybody under 40 is what we've done. No, but what if you turned on, some Christian music and you didn't just get lost in the music, but you asked God for a moment of worship? What if you just stopped and walked outside and stood and felt the sunshine on your face and you thanked God and you quoted your favorite verses? Or what if you just hit your knees, or heaven forbid, what if you just got on your face? And instead of pleading for God to smite that person that you just got on the phone with, you pled for forgiveness for your own inadequacies. I think that putting praise breaks as the thing that separates you from the ugly in ministry is a way to protect your soul. It's a way to say, these things are real and I cannot control how they act or how the world is or what the bills are like, but I can control my response. And my response is going to be always to look upon you in the sanctuary and behold your power and glory. And I will bless you as long as I live. And in your name, I will lift up my hands.
I used to tell when I was working in student ministry and kids were in positions of making really hard decisions. And I used to tell them to do the 5 minutes before you have to make that decision. And I'm wondering for us as pastors and leaders, what if in the 5 minutes after you've gotten that terrible phone call or something hasn't gone well, what if in that moment, instead of your default position of whining and complaining and passing it on to somebody else, and what if in that moment we were saying, God, what do I need to learn from this? You're still on your throne despite this, whatever it is. What if in that moment we were going back to Him as our default and saying, okay, God, help me check myself, help me get my composure, whatever it is. And I'm wondering if we had those moments. It doesn't need to be 5 minutes, but maybe it's just a minute, or just, okay, God, I need to reorientate myself back to you after that. Yeah. And that might be a way for us to have a discipline to be more centered on Him in those moments and just in life in general.
And I think what you're saying is absolutely true, because what we do is we do that, but we go to God and we pray about that person, about that situation.
Yep.
But what this verse is teaching me is that forget that for a minute. Just look upon him. Just glorify him. Just have that moment where you lift up your hands towards him. Because once we get recentered on the fact that God is the God of the universe, that he is the one and only, that I can earnestly seek him, everything else just kind of pales in comparison. And it's just not worth it.
Bruce.
Just not worth it. So praise breaks. That's what we're talking about. In the middle of all that hardship, we're talking about the spiritually healthy pastor. We are talking about the fact that you can actually have a healthy heart, a mind, a soul. And next week, we're going to talk about the pastor's strength. Now, I'm going to be straight up. We're going to get in your business next week. We're going to be talking about how we take care of this physical body of ours and that it's important. We love you and we're proud of you. We are with you here at the Rural Pastor Podcast. Have a great week. We'll see you again soon for a spiritually healthy pastor. Bye-bye.
Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, with a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you sow, but it just takes one willing soul to make him known.
Thank you for joining us on the Rural Pastor Podcast. Special thanks to Chosen Road for our incredible theme music and to 180 Digital for their corporate sponsorship and making all the technical things possible. Rural Church Leader, we want to remind you that your work is important, that you are important, and that you are not alone. See you again soon for another edition of the Rural Pastor Podcast.